The moment World War III begins, most people imagine missiles, blackouts, empty highways, and silent skies. But there's a place almost no one talks about, a place holding millions of people, behind concrete walls and steel doors, prisons, across the United States, the UK, Australia, and allied nations. Prisons are designed for order during peace, not chaos during global war. When the first sirens sound and governments shift into survival mode, prisons don't disappear. They become pressure cookers, and what happens inside them is unsettling. At first, life inside prison doesn't change dramatically. Guards still. Report for duty. Locks still click shut. Meals are still served. Authorities avoid panic at all costs, because panic spreads fast behind bars. Inmates hear rumors before official news ever reaches them. A whispered conversation during chow. A guard's tense expression. A radio turned off too quickly. That's enough to spark fear. But once the reality of war settles in, the cracks begin to show. Staff shortages are the first major problem. In a world war, correctional officers are not exempt from fear, family obligations, or even military call-ups. Some don't show up. Some can't. Others simply choose their families over their jobs. A prison that once ran on strict schedules suddenly finds itself understaffed, overworked, and stretched thin. With fewer guards, movement becomes restricted. Inmates are locked down longer. Recreation stops. Programs vanish overnight. The tension builds in silence. Then comes the supply issue. Prisons rely on constant deliveries: food, medicine, fuel, water treatment chemicals during W3 supply. Chains are among the first things to collapse. Trucks stop arriving on time. Deliveries shrink. Quality drops. Meals become smaller, blander, sometimes dangerously inadequate. When food becomes uncertain, fear turns into anger. Medical care suffers even faster. Many prisons already struggle with basic health care. During a global war, hospitals outside take priority. Medications become scarce. Chronic conditions go untreated. Mental health care, already fragile, nearly disappears. Inside those walls, desperation doesn't stay quiet. Authorities face a brutal dilemma: maintain control at all costs, or adapt in ways no one wants to discuss publicly. In maximum security facilities, response is usually force. Lockdowns become permanent. Inmates are confined to cells for 23 or even 24 hours a day. Riot gear stays on standby. Armed units are positioned nearby. The message is clear. Order will be enforced, no matter what's happening outside. But this approach comes with consequences. Extended lockdowns, self-harm, and mental breakdowns. The longer people are trapped without information, movement, or hope, the more unstable the environment becomes. Guards feel it too. Fear doesn't respect uniforms. In lower security prisons and overcrowded facilities, the situation is more volatile. Some governments quietly consider early releases. Nonviolent offenders, short sentences, elderly inmates. This isn't mercy. It's logistics. Fewer inmates mean fewer mouths to feed, fewer risks to manage. But releasing prisoners during a world war is politically radioactive. Leaders know the public backlash would be fierce. So decisions are delayed, debated, pushed down the road, until crisis forces action. Communication becomes another battlefield. News from the outside world is tightly controlled, not to protect inmates, but to prevent chaos. When rumors spread faster than facts, prisons can explode. A single false report about a nearby nuclear strike or government collapse can trigger riots. So information is filtered. Radios removed. TV access restricted. Silence becomes policy, and silence breeds imagination. Inmates begin preparing in their own ways. Some hoard food, some align with gangs more tightly. Some plan escapes, believing the outside world can't possibly be worse than what's coming inside. Others do the opposite. They cling to routine, praying the walls will protect them from whatever is happening beyond the razor wire. Because here's the uncomfortable truth for some prisoners, especially during nuclear or chemical threats: Prison walls may actually feel safer than freedom. Thick concrete, controlled environments, underground areas, limited exposure. That thought alone changes behavior. As governments focus on borders, militaries, and survival of the state, prisons quietly slide down the priority list. Not abandoned, but no longer central, and that's when the real question begins to form. If the war drags on, if resources continue to vanish, if order outside begins to fracture, how long can prisons remain locked, controlled, and fed before the system itself starts to break? That answer doesn't come immediately. It comes later, when choices grow darker and survival replaces justice. As World War III stretches from weeks into months, prisons enter a phase no system is truly prepared for. Survival. By this point, governments are no longer asking how to rehabilitate inmates. They're asking how to prevent total collapse. Budgets are redirected to the military. Emergency powers override normal oversight. Decisions that once took years are now made in hours. Inside prisons, the rules change quietly. Guards are given expanded authority. Use of force policies loosen. Lockdowns become indefinite. Entire wings are sealed off, not because of riots, but because there aren't enough staff to monitor them. Some facilities consolidate inmates into fewer areas, increasing overcrowding to dangerous levels. Tension is no longer simmering. It's boiling. In several scenarios war planners rarely admit publicly. Prisons are categorized by importance. High security facilities holding dangerous offenders receive priority protection. Others don't. Smaller, rural prisons are sometimes left with minimal support, expected to manage internally. That's when things begin to fracture. Riots don't always start with violence. Sometimes they begin with hunger. A delayed meal. A sick inmate denied medication. A rumor that guards are abandoning their posts. Once trust evaporates, control becomes fragile. In overcrowded prisons, gangs fill the power vacuum. Order still exists, just not the kind the system intended. Food, protection, information all become currency. Inmates who once avoided trouble are forced to choose sides. Escape attempts increase, but not in the cinematic way people imagine. Not daring tunnels or dramatic breakouts. More often, it's chaos. Fires set as distractions. Fences rushed. Doors forced when staffing is thin. Many attempts fail. Some succeed. And those who escape don't always find freedom. They find a world already struggling to survive. Outside, the walls' public reaction is conflicted. On one hand, fear. The idea of prisoners released or escaping during a world war terrifies communities already under stress. On the other hand, reality sets in. Police forces are stretched thin. Military units are deployed elsewhere. Recapturing escapees is no longer a top priority unless they pose an immediate threat. Then comes the hardest decision governments rarely speak about openly. Mass release. Not chaos-driven releases. Controlled. Strategic ones. Nonviolent offenders are let go with little more than paperwork and a warning. Some are released to overcrowded shelters. Others are handed a bus ticket and told to find family. Many have nowhere to go. This isn't justice. It's triage. And for those left behind, the ones considered too dangerous to release, conditions worsen. Resources are rationed. Medical care becomes almost non-existent. Mental health crises skyrocket. Suicide rates climb. Guards, exhausted and afraid, begin quitting in waves. At this stage, prisons stop functioning as correctional facilities and start resembling containment zones. In the most extreme scenarios, prolonged nuclear standoffs or chemical warfare. Contingency plans are triggered that few citizens know exist. Some facilities are sealed entirely, cutting off movement in and out. Not to punish inmates, but to prevent contamination. Inside, time loses meaning. For inmates, the realization is crushing. They are no longer part of society's future plans. They are frozen in place while the world reshapes itself outside. Some cling to hope. Others sink into despair. A few adapt in chilling ways, accepting that survival, not freedom, is the only goal left. And yet, Something unexpected happens. In certain prisons. Cooperation emerges. Guards and inmates reach uneasy truces. Violence decreases not because of control, but because everyone understands what's at stake. Food is shared. Rules are bent. Humanity flickers in places it was never expected to survive because war doesn't just test nations. It tests people. When World War III eventually ends. Whether in resolution or exhaustion, prisons don't simply return to normal. They are scarred institutions filled with trauma, loss, and unanswered questions. Records are missing. Lives are changed forever. Some inmates who are released into a broken world. Others never left their cells, and society is left with a haunting reality. In times of peace, prisons are hidden. In times of war, they become mirrors, reflecting how much a civilization values control over compassion, security over humanity, and survival over justice. World War III wouldn't just reshape borders and governments. It would expose what happens when millions of lives are locked behind doors while the world outside burns. If this made you think, really think, about the systems we never see during global crises, then stay here. Subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know what hidden corner of society you want explored next, because the stories that matter most are often the ones no one wants to talk about.